Hello and welcome to Movie Recap. Today I am going to recap action movie, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. People usually visit a doctor when they get sick, take their own medicine, or, in the worst cases, call in a witch doctor. In any case, when our hero's sister falls wiped out with a destructive and serious illness, she chooses to go to outrageous lengths, something that has never been finished. She actually travels to Egypt, raises one of the mummies that have died, and gives the order for it to treat her dying sister. Although the strategy is risky, it is her only hope. The movie cuts to a few days earlier after this. After a long day at work, a middle-aged man named Choupard is returning home to Paris. He's alcoholic, rumpled, and in urgent need of easing himself. With no place to go, Choupard chooses to answer nature's call in the most flighty of spots, directly before a gigantic sculpture. However, just as he is about to finish, he is frightened by a strange light coming from nearby. He flees. After that, the camera cuts to the residence of a prominent physicist, Jose, aka Marie Joseph. He has many years of involvement in the field, and many accept that he could actually perform black magic. Jose is currently working on telepathic experiments and has extensive knowledge of ancient Egypt. He believes that life can continue after death. Following this, we are taken to the Public Historical Center of Regular History, where an immense 136 million-year-old egg of a pterosaur is kept. In a modern-day miracle, Jose utilizes his clairvoyant powers to bring forth the old egg, and a huge pterosaur rises up out of it. It turns out the teacher has some control over the bird's actual developments, so he makes it fly through the discriminatory constraint. In any case, when he loses center briefly, it lands on top of a passing vehicle. As a result, the vehicle crashed, killing everyone inside. Unintentionally, Choupard observes the episode and reports it to the police. In the report, he explains how a dinosaur made the vehicle fall into the stream. When the public learns about this, they are completely taken aback. A large number of them even quit going to work, expecting that the dinosaur might go after them. Consequently, the French president directs the national police to prioritize the case. The young man, Andrzej Borowski, who works as Dr. Menard's assistant at a botanical garden, is then shown to us. He enjoys reading very much and is a huge fan of the adventurous author Adele Blanc-Sec. He writes letters to her in his spare time in the hope of winning her heart. Andrzej is heartbroken and frustrated because Adele does not respond to his advances despite his persistence. She is currently on a journey through Egypt to find the mummy of Thutmose, a well-known scholar and advisor to the Egyptian pharaoh. 2. Rameses Adele hires 2 local Egyptians and manages to sneak into Thutmose's tomb despite the fact that the entire operation is illegal. With her sharp psyche, she then, at that point, opens the entry, which was being impeded by a wall. The 2 men reveal their true selves after entering the tomb. It turns out that they are robbers who want the tomb's jewels. They compromise Adele and attempt to send her away, just to understand that they can't leave the spot without her assistance. Subsequently, the criminals consent to allow her to get the mummy while they keep the gold. They eventually locate the coffin, which contains millions of dollars worth of treasure. Adele looks for another way to carry the heavy coffin out of the tomb as they begin to pocket it. Tragically, something sets the burial chamber's enemy of burglary component into motion, and it kills the cheats for attempting to take the gems. The sudden turn of events shocks Adele, but before she can even process what happened, a professor by the name of Diouville and some police storm into the tomb. It's obvious that the 2 know one another quite well, and Diouville requests to know why she is after the mummy. Adele finally admits that she wants to ask Thutmose for help healing her dying sister because she has no other option. According to Professor Jose's book, she believes the mummy can be resurrected despite its death. Obviously, this makes Diouville burst into giggling, and he presumptuously tells her that it's an unthinkable idea. He then directs the police to take her into custody. It turns out that they intend to execute her immediately. Adele gets one last wish, which she uses to request a cigarette. But when she gets one, she puts Diouville in the machine that makes mummies and sets the tomb on fire. She then rapidly hops into Thutmose's casket and drives it into an enormous well that is associated with a waterway from the base. He is saved just in time by the operatives of Professor Diouville in the meantime. Professor Menard notices the broken pterodactyl egg at the Natural History Museum. Other members of the staff assume that the glass ceiling and egg were broken into by a visitor. However, Menard's observation that the eggshells are still connected to the amniotic membrane disproves the theory. This indicates that the egg was cracked internally, allowing the pterodactyl to emerge from it and escape through the glass. Inspector Capone soon arrives to investigate the situation, but Menard conceals his findings and suggests that he meet Professor Jose instead. When Jose hears a sudden knock at his door, he is busy feeding the enormous pterodactyl at his residence. It turns out to be the cunning Inspector Capone. Jose quickly hides the enormous bird behind thick curtains out of panic, hoping to avoid any unwanted attention. However, Capone makes himself available for lunch, forcing Jose to entertain his unwelcome guest. The pterodactyl suddenly becomes aggressive and attacks Capone as he serves the inspector boiled eggs before flying away. The inspector orders his men to arrest the professor because this frightens him to death. Adele brings the mummy back from Egypt in the following scene. She shares her home with her ailing sister, who is confined to a wheelchair. The latter got into this situation after a long hairpin got stuck in her head, as it turns out. Adele, as usual, ignores the tens of thousands of letters Andre has sent her while continuing with her day. Adele discovers Andre dropping yet another letter at her door later that day. After pleasantly disposing of him, she sees a paper report about Jose's capture and capital punishment. Overpowered with stress, she races to the prison, camouflaged as a legal counselor, to meet him. Jose tells her that the pterodactyl shows that he can bring creatures back to life, but he also tells her that he won't be able to help her while he is in prison. Adele, frantic to save her sister, who is experiencing a clasp held up in her mind, asks Jose to restore Patmosis, whom she accepts can give the fix. Jose, on the other hand, is unable to assist given his current circumstances. Sadly, Adele's cover is blown as she attempts to devise a strategy, and she is released from jail. The outcome is the same, even though she returns in a new disguise. After numerous preliminaries, she at last arrives at Jose's cell, only to discover that he has been moved out of prison and will be executed promptly in the first part of the day. With this, Adele acknowledges that she can't save Jose without help from anyone else, so she chooses to look for the president's assistance. She was one of the first reporters to interview the president after he took office, so it turns out that she has known him for some time. Jose's scientific credentials, and the damage to France's scientific community that would result from his execution are emphasized by Adele, as she explains the situation to him. In the wake of listening to her, the president vows to investigate the matter. He then tosses a ball and orders his pet dog to get it. However, the nearby pterosaur attacks the president after mistaking the ball for an egg. As Adele watches it all unfold, she jumps into action right away and saves him. Sadly, no one notices the enormous bird, so they believe Adele attacked the president. Subsequently, she was captured. Meanwhile, Capone enlists an expert tracker from South Africa to find the pterodactyl. The film then, at that point, slices to Menard's professional flowerbed, where Andre shows him the home made by a pterodactyl. The giant bird was tricked into making a nest in the backyard by Andre, who knew a lot about dinosaurs. This is then made clear. This knocks Menard's socks off, so he compliments his student for his knowledge. The police ultimately discharge Adele from guardianship, and when she gets back, she scrubs down to disregard her hardships. She decides to read Andre's most recent letter while she's at it. It turns out that the bird resides in Menard's botanical garden. She rushes to Andre, kisses him, and asks him to take her to the bird in the hope that it will lead her to Professor Jose. In the wake of arriving there, Adele rapidly becomes friends with the pterodactyl and utilizes it to save teacher Jose from getting executed. The giant beast is not safe anywhere else, so they return to the garden. Menard is pleased to see Jose because it turns out the two professors were friends growing up. Sadly, the South African also arrives and kills the pterodactyl with a single shot. This causes inconceivable agony for both the monster and Jose, as their spirits seem, by all accounts, to be associated with each other. Menard rapidly grabs the weapon from the tracker and shoos him away, however, the harm has already been done. As a result, as time runs out, Adele jumps into action right away and asks Andre to protect the bird while she and Professor Jose rush back to her house to care for her sick sister. There, the professor begins performing his magic after creating a self-contained antique circle. He appears to be on his way to success, but about halfway through, he suddenly loses power and passes away. Adele appears to be giving up as a result of this devastation. Notwithstanding, her distress is brief, as she before long finds that Jose really revived Patmosis prior to dying. It turns out the Pharaoh's clinical specialist was really right next to him. A flashback then uncovers that Adele's sister got hurt during a tennis match between the two. Adele accidentally hit her sister in the forehead with the ball during the game. Consequently, she landed on her back and hit her hairpin with her head. The entire story makes Patmosis feel close to home, and he laments not having the option to help her. However, he reveals that the dead within a 2-kilometer radius must have been revived by Jose's telepathic power. Adele rushes to the Louvre Museum, where Ramesses II's mummy and his servants are on display, buoyed by this hope. She also brings Patmosis and her sister with her. The latter assists them in entering the museum and puts the guards to sleep when they are close to being caught. In the following scene, Adele finds the mummies and awakens them from profound rest. Then, Patmosis tells the pharaoh about her sister's ordeal and asks him to let his personal doctor, Nosebes, treat her. The pharaoh, however, is furious because he believes he has been disturbed by such a trivial matter. Adele breaks down in tears and begins to explain the guilt she has been carrying around for the past 5 years, just as it appears as though all hope has been lost. She reveals that she gave her sister the hairpin that caused her to become permanently disabled. The pharaoh finally feels sorry for Adele and lets Nosebes treat her sister after hearing this. The latter also removes the hairpin from her head in a matter of seconds. After that, he uses the sister's intestines to make a magic potion that covers the hole in her forehead and then wraps a bandage around her head. Before departing with his entourage, the pharaoh gives the girl a kiss to complete the procedure. Inevitably, she at long last awakens, doubtless arousing a lot of enjoyment in Adele. They embrace and overflow with emotion, while Patmosis quietly leaves to accompany his companions. Andre returns to Adele's door a few weeks later, this time bearing flowers. However, since he is unable to locate her there, he gives the items to her sister instead. Their romantic relationship officially begins as a result of this. In the interim, Adele is seen boarding a boat that is revealed to be the RMS Titanic. The evil professor from earlier sarcastically wishes her a happy journey at the end of the film. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.